Good morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the carcinoma of the stomach. And these are the learning objectives of our lecture. Describe etiology of carcinoma of stomach. Describe pathogenesis of carcinoma of stomach. Enumerate pathological types of carcinoma of stomach correctly. And describe gross and microscopic features of carcinoma of the stomach. So before we discuss our lecture, we'll see some basic things related to the stomach. So this is the anatomy of the stomach. Here stomach is attached with the esophagus, and this the first part is the cardia, then this part is the fundus, this middle part is the body of the stomach, then pyloric antrum, canal and pyloric sphincter, and then it is continuous with the duodenum. This is the lesser curvature of the stomach and greater curvature of the stomach. And when we cut the stomach, there is four layers. One is mucosa, submucosa, muscle layer and serosa. So this is the mucosal part that shows the rugae of the mucosa, then submucosa, then this is the muscle layer, and outermost part is the serosa. So this is the anatomy of the stomach. Then histology of the stomach. So as we have seen that this is the mucosa, so that contains the glandular part. So this is the gastric glands. Then this is the submucosa that contains connective tissue, blood vessels and nerves. Then muscle layer, and then outer part is the serosa. And these gastric glands that contains the different types of cells that function differently. So we'll see different types of cells. These are the mucous neck cells. This is the gastric pit and gastric lumen. So first is mucous neck cell that secrete the mucus and bicarbonate that protects the lining of the stomach. Second is this parietal cell that secrete the gastric acid that is needed for the digestion of the foods, and intrinsic factor that is important for the calcium absorption. Then these are the enterochromaffin like cell, that is endocrine cell, that also secrete the histamine and that also stimulate the acid secretion. Then Chief cells, these are the chief cells that secrete the pepsin and gastric lipases. These are the enzymes that are needed for the digestion of the foods. Then D cells, so that secrete the somatostatin that inhibits the acid, and G cells, that is they secrete the gastrin that stimulates the acid secretion. So these are the different types of cells that are present in the gastric glands and they function differently. Today we'll discuss under this heading gastric carcinoma, gastric adenocarcinoma, that is carcinoma of the glandular part. Then lymphoma, that is the tumor of lymphoid tissue. Carcinoid tumor, that is the neuroendocrine tumor. And GIST, that is gastrointestinal stromal tumor. So we'll see one by one. First is gastric adenocarcinoma. That is the carcinoma of the gastric glandular epithelium. Adenocarcinoma of the stomach comprises more than 90% of all the gastric malignancies. So it is the most common carcinoma of the stomach. Leading cause of cancer-related death in the countries where its incidence is high, and highest incidence is seen in age group of 4 to 6 decade of life, that is 40 to 60 years of age, and men are more commonly affected than the women. Then etiological factors of the gastric carcinoma, H. pylori infection, then dietary factors, genetic factors and precancerous changes. So these are the etiological factors and we'll see one by one. First is the H. pylori infection. So when there is a inflammation by H. pylori infection that remains limited to the antrum, that increase the acid secretion, and there is greater risk of gastric or duodenal ulcer disease. All these things you have already learned in the peptic ulcer disease. But when this H. pylori infection is long standing, means chronic H. pylori gastritis that also involve the gastric body and fundus, that result in the atrophic gastritis because of the loss of this parietal cell mass that is present in the body and fundus. So there is a reduced acid secretion and that lead to the hypochlorhydria or achlorhydria. So reduced acid secretion will lead to the increased growth of the bacteria, and that will secrete some carcinogenic agents, that is nitrosamines, that will lead to the intestinal metaplasia and increased risk of the gastric adenocarcinoma. So H. pylori infection is associated with both the things, peptic ulcer disease as well as the gastric adenocarcinoma. But when it is chronic, it will lead to the high risk of the gastric adenocarcinoma. Second factor is the dietary factors. So role of dietary factors in causation of gastric carcinoma is explained by the fact that this gastric cancer mostly occur in the region of the gastric canal, that is along the lesser curvature and pyloric antrum, where the irritating foods exert their maximum effect. Second thing is that the populations who are consuming certain foodstuffs that have the high risk of the developing gastric cancer. So like ingestion of smoked foods. Smoking is the process of cooking and preserving food, mostly fish and meat. So people who are taking these smoked foods have higher chance of developing the gastric cancer. Other things are high intake of salt, pickled raw vegetables, high intake of carcinogens that are present as nitrates that are present in foods and drinking water, and nitrites that are used as preservatives for the certain meats. So people who are taking these, they also have higher chance of developing the gastric cancer. Then tobacco smoking and alcohol also have the carcinogenic effect on the gastric mucosa. So this explains the role of dietary factors in the causation of the gastric cancer. But intake of green leafy vegetables, citrus fruits and animal fats have been reported that they have the protective role in the gastric cancer. Third is the geographical factors. So there are geographic variations in the incidence of the gastric cancer. Like Japan and Italy have the highest recorded death rate from the gastric cancer, whereas US, UK and Canada have the low incidence. Then racial factors. So different ethnic groups have variation in incidence of gastric cancer. Like incidence is higher in blacks than American Indians, Chinese in Indonesia, then peoples of North Wales are more affected than the other parts of the Wales. So this high incidence because of this geographic and racial factors is because of the environmental influences. Then genetic factors. So 4% of the patients of gastric cancer have family history of this disease. And individuals with blood group A have higher tendency to develop the gastric cancer. And recall that the peptic ulcer is more common in individuals with blood group O. So this explains the genetic factors. Then later we see the classification of the gastric cancer. So there are two types of gastric cancer. One is diffuse gastric cancer and other is intestinal type gastric cancer, that is based on the extent of invasion. So first, diffuse gastric cancer, the genetic alterations that are seen is loss of function mutations in the CDH1 tumor suppressor gene that encode the cell adhesion protein E-cadherin, that is seen in 50% of the sporadic diffuse gastric cancers. So remember this loss of function mutation in CDH1 tumor suppressor gene and E-cadherin gene. Second is intestinal gastric cancers that are associated with mutations that result in the increased signaling via the WNT pathway. Okay, so let's see the what is WNT pathway. So normally what happens, this APC gene, that is the adenomatous polyposis coli tumor suppressor gene, that normally uh, uh, destroy this beta catenin. So this beta catenin is not available to transfer from cytoplasm to nucleus. But whenever there is a increased signaling via this WNT pathways, so there is a mutations that lead to the binding of this WNT ligands with these Frizzle receptors that will remove this APC gene. So there is a increased expression of this beta catenin, and that is transported from the cytoplasm into the nucleus, and that will lead to the transcription of the DNA and increased transcription of the proteins and cell proliferation. So either mutations that will lead to the increased signaling via this pathway, or loss of function mutations of this APC gene, because normally that destroy this beta catenin, or gain of function mutations of this beta catenin will lead to the intestinal type of gastric cancer. Other genes that are also commonly seen are loss of function mutations of this transforming growth factor beta signaling, because normally it is the inhibitor of the cell proliferation, and if it is lost, then cell proliferation will continue. Other is regulation of this apoptosis, that is BAX, and cell cycle control gene, that is CDKN2A, that is cyclin dependent kinase inhibit. Then people who are affected by this H. pylori gastritis have genetic variants of pro-inflammatory genes such as the interleukin 1 beta and interleukin 1 receptor that are also highly associated with elevated risk of this gastric cancer. And last etiological factor is the pre-malignant changes that are seen in the gastric mucosa. So as we have seen, hypo or echlorhydria that is seen in atrophic gastritis of gastric mucosa, that is seen in either H. pylori gastritis, chronic H. pylori gastritis, or autoimmune gastritis with chances of conversion into the intestinal metaplasia and gastric adenocarcinoma. Second is adenomatous polyps of the stomach. So polyp basically is a mass that project above the level of the surrounding mucosa, and that develop as a result of either epithelial or stromal hyperplasia or inflammatory conditions or neoplastic conditions. So people who have this adenomatous polyps of the stomach have higher chance of development into the gastric carcinoma. Third is chronic gastric ulcer. So this ulcer can convert into the cancer, and patients who have undergone partial gastrectomy for the peptic ulcer disease, in which the part of the stomach is removed, so that will lead to the hypochlorhydria or chances of bile reflux, and that will lead to the high chance of development of this gastric carcinoma in the remaining part of the stomach. So that is stomach carcinoma. So these are the pre-malignant changes that are associated with the increased risk of the gastric adenocarcinoma. Now the common sites that are affected, first is this the pyloric canal, that is the most common site, because as we have also seen in the dietary factors that irritating fluids also exert the uh, uh, effect in this region. Second is body, third is cardia, and fourth is the fundus. Then classification of the gastric adenocarcinoma. So gastric adenocarcinoma is broadly classified into two main groups. One is early gastric carcinoma, means in situ carcinoma that is confined to the mucosal layers. Whereas second type is advanced gastric carcinoma, so that eventually penetrates the muscularis, that is muscle layer, and beyond, that is advanced gastric carcinoma. And subtypes of advanced gastric carcinoma are ulcerative carcinoma, fungating or polypoid carcinoma, serous carcinoma or limitatus plastica, colloid or mucoid carcinoma, and ulcer cancer. So we'll see all this in detail. And other classification is based on the extent of the invasion, that is expanding carcinoma, and formally it is known as the intestinal type. This intestinal carcinoma that form the bulky mass in the lumen of the stomach. So this is known as the expanding carcinoma, and second type is the infiltrating carcinoma, and formally it is known as the diffuse type. So it infiltrate diffusely in the wall of the stomach, so that form the thickened wall. So it is known as the infiltrating or diffuse type carcinoma. So this classification is based on the extent of the invasion. So let's see what is early gastric carcinoma. Early gastric carcinoma is cancer that is limited to mucosa and submucosa. And grossly it is of 5 types: polypoid type, superficial elevated, flat type, and superficial depressed and ulcerated type. So this is the gross picture. First is the polypoid type, so it protruded from the lumen. Second is superficial elevated type, like this. Third is the flat type, so this is the flat type. And this 2C is the depressed type, so it is depressed. And excavated type, that is ulcerated type, so it shows the ulcer formation. So these are the types of the early gastric carcinoma. And histologically, this early gastric carcinoma is a typical well differentiated glandular adenocarcinoma. So as you know, differentiation means it refers to the extent to which the these neoplastic parenchymal cells that resemble the corresponding normal parenchymal cells, both functionally as well as the morphologically. And lack of differentiation is called as the anaplasia. So based on differentiation, they are divided into well differentiated, moderately differentiated, and poorly differentiated types. So well differentiated, that involves the less than 25% of the anaplastic cells, and poorly differentiated, that have more than 75% of the anaplastic cell, and in between spectrum is the moderately differentiated type. So this early gastric carcinoma that shows the well differentiated glandular adenocarcinoma, so they very well resemble to this normal gastric glands, and prognosis is also good after resection. Then advanced gastric carcinoma means when this carcinoma crosses the basement membrane into the muscularis propria or beyond. So it is referred to as the advanced gastric carcinoma. And types, first is the ulcerative carcinoma. This is the most common pattern, and the tumor shows grossly it is flat, infiltrating and ulcerative growth with irregular necrotic base and raised margins, and more commonly it occurs in the region of the gastric canal. So first type is the ulcerative carcinoma, and that is the most common pattern. Histologically, here you see the poorly differentiated types. So these are the poorly differentiated cells of glandular epithelium, but at some point you can see the glandular differentiation, and that invade deeply into the stomach wall. So ulcerative carcinoma are of poorly differentiated. Second is fungating or polypoid carcinoma. So that most commonly occur in the fundus of the stomach. So this is the cauliflower-like growth that are present, and this tumor undergoes the necrosis and infection commonly. So this is the gross picture of this type. And histologically, they are of well-differentiated adenocarcinoma, commonly papillary type. So uh, papillary means there is a finger-like projections of this uh, papillae, and that contains central this fibrovascular core, and that is lined by this carcinomatous cells in the periphery. So this type is basically well differentiated adenocarcinoma and papillary type. Third is serous carcinoma, and also known as the linitis plastica. So here the stomach wall is thickened. So here you can see this is the diffusely infiltrating carcinoma. So it is known as the linitis plastica, and this wall is thickened, and it resembles to this leather bottle. So it is also known as the leather bottle stomach, and commonly site affected at the pyloric centrum, uh, or it will diffusely affect the whole stomach. And histologically, this type can show adenocarcinoma or signet ring cell carcinoma that extensively infiltrate the stomach wall. So this is the signet ring appearance. So these cells show intracellular accumulation of the mucin in the cytoplasm, and there is a nucleus are towards the periphery. So this all is the signet ring like appearance. So this is the signet ring cell carcinoma. Fourth type is the colloid or mucoid carcinoma. So usually this is seen in the fundus of the stomach, and this masses show the gelatinous appearance because of the secretion of large quantities of the mucus. So this is the gelatinous appearance because of the presence of the mucus. And histologically, you can see these abundant pools of the mucin, that is the extracellular part of the mucin, with small number of tumor cells that are floating in the mucin pools. And you can also have sometimes signet ring appearance. And last type is the ulcer cancer. So here what happens, there is a development of the cancer in the chronic gastric ulcer, but it is a very rare occurrence. And microscopically you see the changes of the peptic ulcer with one portion of the base or the margin of the ulcer showing the carcinomatous changes. So here you can see both types of changes, peptic ulcer as well as the carcinomatous changes, and they usually shows the adenocarcinoma. So let us see the difference between the benign and malignant gastric ulcers. So benign ulcer that occurs in the younger age group and malignant ulcer that occurs in the older age group. Males are more commonly affected, and benign ulcer, the symptoms, there is a longer duration of symptoms. Here is the shorter duration of symptoms. Commonly it affects the lesser curvature of the pylorus and antrum, but malignant ulcer commonly occurs in the greater curvature of pylorus and antrum. Grossly, this benign ulcer are small, regular in shape, mucosal folds are radiating, and ulcer bed may show hemorrhagic change. Whereas malignant ulcers are large, irregular in shape, mucosal folds are interrupted, and that can show the necrotic base. If we do the barium study, this benign ulcer shows the punched out ulcer, that is the punched out means sharp margins, whereas malignant ulcer shows the irregular filling defect. Acidity, it may be normal to low in benign ulcer, whereas it can be achlorhydria, totally absence of the acid production in the malignant ulcer. And this benign ulcer respond well to medical therapy, whereas malignant ulcer does not respond to the medical therapy. So this is the gross picture of the benign and malignant ulcer. These are the small, regular, that shows the radiating mucosal folds, and there may be presence of the hemorrhagic plaque. Whereas these malignant ulcers are large, irregular, and there is interrupted mucosal folds, and there may be presence of necrotic base. So this is the gross picture. Clinical features, how this patient present. So people can have persistent abdominal pain, gastric distension and vomiting, loss of weight, loss of appetite, anemia, weakness and malaise. So these are the clinical features of this patient. Other carcinomas that can occur are adenosquamous carcinoma. So in adenosquamous carcinoma, that is both the epithelium squamous as well as the glandular epithelium are malignant. Squamous cell carcinoma here is pure squamous cell carcinoma, and undifferentiated carcinoma that lack the differentiation, also known as the anaplastic carcinoma, and all of which are morphologically similar to such tumors that occur elsewhere in the body. So this is the morphological feature, histological feature of adenosquamous carcinoma, and that shows both the component. Here is the glandular part and here is the squamous part. So this is the malignant part of glandular epithelium, adeno component, and malignant component of the squamous epithelium. So all this is about the gastric adenocarcinoma. Now next is lymphoma of the gut, that is the tumors of the lymphoid tissue. It can be of primary or secondary type. Primary GI lymphomas are defined as lymphoma that are arising from the gut without any evidence of systemic involvement at the time of presentation. And they are most commonly indolent extranodal marginal zone B cell lymphoma, also known as the maltomas, because they arise from the mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. But here in the stomach, it arises from the chronic gastritis. Secondary GI lymphomas, on the other hand, appear in the gut after dissemination from the other primary site. So it may be primary or secondary. Clinical manifestations of GI lymphoma that are similar to gastric carcinoma, and age incidence is lower than that for the carcinoma. Here it is 30 to 40 years of age people are affected, whereas in gastric carcinoma 40 to 60 years of age are affected, and it can occur in the children. There is relationship with long-standing chronic H. pylori gastritis with lymphoid hyperplasia is suggested. Pathogenesis. Three translocations that are seen with the gastric maltoma are translocation 11-18, translocation 1-14, translocation 1-14 and 18. So this translocation of 11-18 that creates the chimeric, this API2 MLT1 gene fusion that encodes this protein API2 MLT1 fusion protein. So this is the apoptosis inhibitor and MALT1 fusion protein. And these two translocation, that is 14 and 80, and 1 and 14 translocation, that cause the increased expression of intact MALT1 and BCL2 proteins respectively. And these three translocation that ultimately leads to the constitutive activation of this factor, that is NFK beta, that is the transcription factor that promotes the B cell growth and survival, and that will lead to the lymphoma. These maltoma that are indolent that can transform into the more aggressive tumors, that is histologically identical to this diffuse large B cell lymphoma, and this transformation is because of the additional genetic changes, that is the inactivation of these tumor suppressor genes that encodes the P53 and P16. Histologically, this marginal zone B cell lymphoma shows atypical lymphoid populations with characteristic lymphoepithelial lesions. So what is this lymphoepithelial lesions? Lymphoepithelial lesion means there is a presence of 2 to 3 lymphoid cells in the gastric glands, and that can disseminate as serosal nodules, as you can see here, or that can infiltrate diffusely, like in this photograph. So this is all about lymphoma. Then third is the carcinoid tumor, that is neuroendocrine tumor. So this carcinoid tumor is the tumors originating from the endocrine cells that are belonging to this APUD cell system. So this APUD cell system is the link between the endocrine glands and nervous system, and so therefore these are also called as the epidomas. And these endocrine cells are distributed throughout the mucosa of the GI tract, so they can occur anywhere in the GI tract. So we'll discuss this carcinoid tumor as a whole in the GI tract. These endocrine cells have the secretory granules that can secrete many substances like histamine, somatostatin, polypeptide, many. And if we stain it positively with silver salts that are called as the argentefin granules, and many stain after addition of the exogenous reducing agent, they are called the non-argentefin or agarophilic granules. So here you can see these gastric endocrine cells are agarophilic cells because they stain after the addition of the reducing agent. But here these duodenal cells are the argentefin cells because they directly stain with the silver salts. So based on this reaction, they may be argentefinoma or non-argentefinoma. These carcinoid tumors are associated with autoimmune chronic atrophic gastritis, Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, proton pump inhibitor therapy, because all these three conditions will ultimately lead to the reduced acid production and increase in the gastrin production that will lead to the hypergastrinemia, and simultaneously endocrine cell hyperplasia as a protective physiological response, and that will lead to ultimately the carcinoid tumor. Then this main one, that is multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome 1, that is associated with pituitary adenoma, parathyroid adenoma and pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor that are associated with the carcinoid tumor of the stomach. Depending upon the embryologic derivation of this tissue, they were classified as foregut, midgut or hindgut carcinoids. So foregut carcinoids that are located in the esophagus, stomach and duodenum, and they are of argyrophilic type, and they encountered as frequently as in the hindgut, that is 10 to 20% incidence. Whereas midgut carcinoids are commonly seen and the incidence is 60 to 80%, and they are seen in the terminal ileum and appendix, and this is Argenteffin type. And hindgut carcinoids that occur in the rectum and colon, they are of also argyrophilic type, and incidence is same as foregut carcinoids. So here foregut and hindgut carcinoids are less common and they are of argyrophilic type, whereas midgut carcinoids that is occur in ileum and appendix are more common and they are of Argenteffin type. Morphological features. So grossly these carcinoids are small button-like submucosal elevations with intact or ulcerated overlying mucosa. So here you can see this is the appendix, and in the tip of the appendix these are the small tumor, and on cut section it is yellowish in color. They are usually small, but those larger than 2 cm are more often metastatizing type. So they can metastatize. Then histologically you can see the seeds and trabeculae of the cells. So this is the seeds of the cells and these are the trabeculae of the uniform cells that contain small round to oval nuclei with granular eosinophilic cytoplasm, and chromatin is salt and pepper type. You can also see this rosette-like formation where there is a central lumen with periphery of the cells. So these are the histological features. And neuroendocrine carcinomas are poorly differentiated neoplasm that have high mitotic rates and Ki67 proliferative index. If we do the immunohistochemistry of the Ki67, that shows the high proliferative index, and they are classified as the small cell type and large cell types, and that occurs because of the additional mutations of this TP53 and RB gene, tumor suppressor genes. And immunohistochemically it shows the presence of synaptophysin and chromatogranin. Then last is gastrointestinal stromal tumor, also known as the GIST. This is the most common mesenchymal tumor of the abdomen, and more than half of this tumor occur in the stomach. The term stromal reflects the historical confusion because of the origin of this tumor, but it is now recognized that it arises from the interstitial cells of the Cajal or pacemaker cells. So these pacemaker cells that are present in the muscle layer of the GI gastrointestinal tract, and that are important player in the GI motility. So that mediate the peristaltic movement of the gastrointestinal tract. And the tumor that arise from these cells are known as the GIST. So as we see in other tumors, in GIST also there is presence of clinically silent microscopic proliferation that may be the precursor to the GIST, and these foci have low mitotic rates and low risk of neoplastic transformation, but that can transform into the neoplasm. 60 years of age people are more commonly affected, but that can occur before the 40 years of age patient. Then Carney's triad, that is the triad of this GIST, paraganglioma, that is the tumor of neuroendocrine system, pulmonary chondroma, that is the tumor of cartilage, benign tumor. So this triad is commonly seen in young females. Then GIST can occur in the children, less common, and some GIST that is seen in children are also associated with this Carney's triad. Then pathogenesis. So most GIST show gain of function mutation in the receptor tyrosine kinase, that is the KIT, and some people have mutations that activate the related this receptor tyrosine kinase, that is platelet derived growth factor receptor alpha, PDGFRA. So constitutively active KIT and PDGFRA trigger the same downstream signaling pathway, and that ultimately leads to the intracellular signals that promote the cell proliferation and survival. Other mutations that are also seen are in NF1, BRAF, HRAS or NRAS, and that these molecules are also function in the same pathway. Other mutations are genes encoding the components of this mitochondrial succinate dehydrogenase complex, that is SDHA, SDHP, C and D, and that ultimately leads to the activation of the vascular endothelial growth factor and insulin-like growth factor, and that will lead to the cell proliferation. Then overt GIST are associated with the deletion of chromosome 14 and 22 and deletion of chromosome 9, that results in the loss of this CDKN2A, that is cyclin dependent kinase inhibitor. And those individuals that have the germline mutations of these genes that have diffuse hyperplasia of these Kajal cells, and that develop the multiple GIST. Morphological features, so that can vary in size, but that can reach up to the 30 centimeter in diameter, and they usually form this solitary well circumscribed fleshy mass, and the overlying mucosa may be ulcerated, and if you cut the tumor there may be walled appearance, as you can see here. And histologically it is of two types, either spindle cell type or epithelioid type. Spindle cell type shows the elongated cells, and epithelioid type shows the epithelial appearing cells. And immunohistochemically it shows the positivity with KIT, KIT and PDGFRA. So summary is that of all this lecture, that we have discussed about the gastric adenocarcinoma, etiological factors, that are the H. pylori, dietary factors, then geographic, racial factors, genetic factors, and some pre-malignant conditions. Then we have seen the pathogenesis. So common mutations are CDH1 that encode for the E-cadherin, and intestinal type that is associated with the WNT pathway. Then we have seen the different classification of the gastric cancer and cross and morphological features of the gastric adenocarcinoma. Then second, we have seen the lymphoma of the gut, that is primary or secondary, and more common is the extranodal marginal zone B cell lymphoma that is associated with some mutations. And we have seen the gross and microscopic features. Then carcinoid tumor, that is neuroendocrine tumor, and we have seen the associations, and grossly it is of small tumor, less than 2 centimeter, but it can metastasize if it is more than 2 centimeter. And morphological features, that is they are commonly the monomorphic uniform cells with eosinophilic granular cytoplasm, and that can be arranged in sheets or trabeculae or rosette formations. And last is the gastrointestinal stromal tumor, that is the tumor of the interstitial cells of Kajal or pacemaker cells, and the pathogenesis they commonly occur because of the mutation of the KIT or platelet derived growth factor receptor alpha gene. Grossly it may be of 30 centimeter in size, fleshy mass on cut surface shows the walled appearance, and histologically it may be of spindle cell type or epithelioid type. Other mesenchymal tumors that are seen are smooth muscle origin. It may be of leiomyoma or leiomyosarcoma, or nerve cell origin, that is schwannoma, etc. Thank you.